God, Liverpool have had some amazing strikers during the Premier League era, larger-than-life goal-scoring titans who have cemented their lineage into Reds folklore with their incredible feats of technique and wonder, which has given us memories that will last a lifetime. The likes of Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen, Luis Suarez, Roberto Firmino and Fernando Torres are just a few names that spring to mind, but sometimes things go wrong when the great creator is bringing these men into existence. Sometimes the pot-labelled lack of talent gets knocked over into the cauldron and we end up with people who can kick a ball about as well as Oscar Pistorius. With the news that Darwin Nunez could have left Liverpool this transfer window, it felt timely that we look at some examples of those attacking players who were brought in with the idea to score goals but couldn't even score in a brothel, as a nice reminder that things could always be worse than the Uruguayan. Welcome to Good Sport Reviews, and this is Liverpool's 10 worst ever Premier League strikers. And if you wouldn't mind, just strike the subscribe button. You won't miss any videos like these mads missed the goal. Aren't I clever? Number 10, Fernando Morientes. So I'm tired of talking about him, but Morientes, it's another day, it's another list where I've got to talk about the perfect example of what happens when football fans have hopes and dreams. Genuinely, Fernando Morientes was hailed as the second coming of Jesus following his arrival in 2005, but he was about as useful as a condom with a hole in it. When we signed the 3-time Champions League winner, it was viewed as an incredible piece of business, with him being a regular in the Real Madrid and Spain squads and possessing all the skills needed to fit into Rafa Benitez's style of play, but it was the embodiment of frustration and wank splat. I put him in my top 10 most frustrating Liverpool players list. That's how much he infuriated me during his Reds career. He scored 12 goals in 61 matches and was flogged for just £3 million after we signed him for 9.3. Great bit of business from the boys. Number 9, Rickie Lambert. It always hurts to put someone who's a genuine fan of the club on one of these lists, but when you score 3 goals in 36 matches, the hurt magically goes away. And if you've read Rickie Lambert's tinfoil tweets over recent years, then he probably does believe magic exists. To be fair, he was signed for a transfer fee of just £4 million back in 2014 at the age of 32, after Liverpool sold Luis Suarez and went into immediate crisis mode, also signing another player we'll touch upon in a bit. But at least Rickie was signed with the sole intention of giving him his dream move and making him a backup attacker to other players, so it's not such a massive shock that he makes the list and didn't exactly perform well. He scored goals against Crystal Palace, Aston Villa and even Ludogorets in the Champions League, but beyond that he didn't have anything to contribute to the side beyond a bit of experience and physical strength up top. Sorry, Big Rick, these are just the facts, and the lad was sold to West Brom just 1 year later. Number 8, Dominic Solanke. Look, on one hand, it might be harsh putting someone on the list who was only 19 at the time of signing and made 1 season's worth of appearances when you considered one for the future, but on the other hand is the money we received for the lad who was 20 years old and made 1 season's worth of appearances in one of the greatest business deals since the invention of OnlyFans. Dominic Solanke was signed in 2017 following his terrific displays at the Under-20s World Cup, in which he was in the England side which won the tournament and saw him win the Golden Ball award. But honestly, that's about as good as it got for him, and that all happened before he even joined the club, which is the true sign of how poor things went at the Reds. He made 27 appearances in the 2017-18 season, scoring a grand total of 1 goal, which came on the final day of the campaign in a 4-0 win over Brighton. And honestly, I'm glad to see that things have gotten better for the lad, but his biggest contribution to Liverpool was the fee we received for him from Bournemouth, which amounted to around £19 million. And to this day, I am convinced that Michael Edwards is Hypno-Toad from Futurama. Number 7, Andriy Voronin. It's very rare that you can be angry over a free transfer. They're essentially the 30-day trial of a product, 0 money spent on them, and if you don't like them, they can be thrown out the door quicker than a dog that shit itself. The latter of those 2 examples, coincidentally, would have been more effective in front of goal than Andriy Voronin, who joined from Bayer Leverkusen in 2007 and was about as useful as a soggy chip. He did score 6 goals and recorded 5 assists, which sounds good on paper until you realise he scored 5 of those goals in one of his 2 seasons at the club, and 3 of them were scored in the first 9 match days of the 2007-8 season. He was riddled with ankle injuries and had all the movement and mobility of a cow on a space hopper. He found himself behind the likes of Fernando Torres, Peter Crouch, Dirk Kuyt and even Harry Kewell for a period of time, and was eventually sold to Dynamo Moscow for £4 million. So I suppose at least he made us a profit. Unlike number 6, Fabio Borini. In hindsight, Fabio Borini's addition to the Liverpool squad should have set the tone for Brendan Rodgers' time at the club, with the former Chelsea and Roma forward being the man with great character's first signing for the Reds when he joined in 2012 for £12.5 million. Now, to put that price tag into perspective, that's around £4.16 million per goal the lad scored for the club during his 3 years there, with his biggest moment being the goal he scored against Chelsea during the 2013-14 season to defeat the Blues at Stamford Bridge. And that goal wasn't even scored for Liverpool, but while he was on loan at Sunderland, for sake. At a time when Liverpool had incredible players like Luis Suarez and Daniel Sturridge up top, it was impossible for Borini to make his way into the side. But when you possess the goal-scoring ability of a fridge freezer, that's not doing you any favours whatsoever. And yet somehow he started for the Reds at the Bernabeu in 2014 against Real Madrid, contributed goal in that match, but he was there, I guess. And to make matters worse, he rejected the move to Sunderland earlier that year for £16 million, but made the move the next year anyway for just £8 million. So thanks a lot for that financial loss, big lad. No wonder FSG don't have the cash to splash nowadays. Number 5, Sean Dundee. I mean, hell, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel now with the man who was so bad that manager at the time, Gerard Houllier, said himself that there was no future for the attacker at the club. And honestly, when you have the likes of Michael Owen, Robbie Fowler and Karl-Heinz Riedel ahead of you, that's a fair assessment. But even if those 3 players weren't ahead of him and he was the sole striker at the club, he probably still would have been sold for a packet of what's-its that expired 3 years earlier, because genuinely, in the 5 matches the former Bundesliga striker played, he possessed all the mobility of a dump truck in park. He played 5 times in his one sole season, all of which were substitute appearances, and none of them lasted longer than 23 minutes. And if you need another example of how poor he was, years later, Roy Evans said he was the one player he regrets signing during his Liverpool stint, and said he was terrible both on and off the pitch, Robbie Savage. Number 4, Andy Carroll. Now stop it. Stop. I can genuinely hear you typing away in the comments, but Andy Carroll was the worst striker Liverpool have ever signed. How do you have a platform? You don't know anything about football, and while all those things might be true, one thing I will not support is this notion that Andy Carroll is the absolute worst striker Liverpool have ever signed, because the top 3 of this list are otherworldly levels of shart. And while Andy Carroll was a £35 million sack of cement with a ponytail, he did at least score some crucial goals, and at least scored 11 goals in 58 matches. It doesn't excuse the fact he played like he had rickets and was viewed initially as Liverpool's new star striker after he had a small purple patch at Newcastle. Not only that, but he was looked at to replace the departed Fernando Torres and scored as many goals in his Liverpool career as Torres scored in his first 19 matches. Thank God we signed Luis Suarez on the same day. Number 3, Iago Aspas. And well, I said it got worse. Iago Aspas was signed in 2013 with the sole purpose of filling into the bite mark shaped hole in the Liverpool squad left by Luis Suarez, with him banned for the first 5 matches of the 2013-14 season. And in that time, the former Celta Vigo striker contributed 1 assist, which came in the first match against Stoke City, and also provided the rest of the players with valuable experience of what it's like to play with just 10 men on the pitch, because beyond that one moment, he did dick all else. He suffered a hamstring injury shortly after and spent pretty much the rest of his Liverpool career on the bench, only playing once in the final 9 matches of the season, which came in the 2-0 defeat to Chelsea, which is remembered for the slip, but should be remembered for this corner, which was so poorly aimed it was like a stormtrooper had taken it. He was shipped off to Sevilla on loan the next season before being sold back to Celta Vigo for £5 million, £2 million less than we bought him for. Number 2, El-Hadji Diouf. £10 million. £10 million is what we paid for El-Hadji Diouf back in 2002, which nowadays has about a value of £18 million. Just going to let that reality sink in before we discuss the man who could aim his bodily fluids better than he could a ball at a goal. When he signed in 2002, following his remarkable World Cup campaign, it was viewed as a signing which justified the money spent, but in 80 Liverpool appearances, Diouf scored just 6 goals, all of which came in his first season, and 2 of them came in his first match, which views as a bit of a letdown for Game of Thrones. I know it's been a few years, but I'm still not over that fact. Who decided to put Bran onto the Iron Throne? Are you taking the actual piss? It should have been Sam, and I will not hear otherwise. Anyway, sorry for not talking about Diouf, but what do you want me to say? The man turned up late for training, played like a turd in a bin bag, and was less mobile than said turd in said bin bag. So much so that Jamie Carragher slammed him in his autobiography, saying he was the last one to be picked in training, and then he had more red cards than he had goals in the 2003-04 season, which is factually correct. And number one, Mario Balotelli. So, little bit of fact about me for those who seem to care. I've been a Liverpool fan since 2004, and to this day, I cannot think of a worse striking addition to this squad than Mario Balotelli, who was brought in to replace Luis Suarez, which is like replacing a bottle of champagne with a half-cut plastic bottle filled with pig piss. Genuinely, to this day, it amazes me how Brendan Rodgers thought he could unlock the talent of Mario while keeping his attitude under control, from swapping shirts with Pepe at half-time in a Champions League match, to being fined 25 grand for an offensive Twitter image, to scoring just 4 goals in 28 appearances during the 14-15 season. It can only be classed as nothing but a disaster. And look, on paper, Balotelli was a talent waiting to be unlocked, like we saw for his brief stints at Man City and AC Milan, but seriously, the lad was more well known for this meme than his goal-scoring ability at Liverpool. And to this day, the very mention of his name haunts me to my core. Thank God we moved him on after just one season when Klopp saw sense to do so. And that's our list. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anyone I've missed out. Who do you think should have been number one? And where do you think Darwin Nunez would rank if he was on this list? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.